Hello, man. Hello, Mgtow. Let me see how my sound is, see what's coming up here. It usually takes about 20 to 30 seconds before everything works out. Hello, man. Hello, Mgtow. There it is. Sound is, see what's coming up. Okay, there it is. And we're all set. Hello, Mgtows. Go your own way. Go your own way. I don't know. Let me see. Let's do it. Go your own way, Mgtow. Go your own way, and remember, all your Simpsons from the past are forgiven, and you're a nude. And Mgtow, I hope sounds okay. I hope everybody's doing well today, and just thought I'd come by and talk a little, talk about Mgtow and things. I probably got a couple subjects today. I finished up the book The Rebel last night, and like always with books like that and philosophy books, it left more questions than answers. There's at the end he gives a paragraph, and he goes over it a couple times during the book, and it's the idea of freedom as paradoxical, and it's at one point he's talking about Nietzsche and asceticism of the great man, and he says the bow breaks to the point. The bow bends the the bow bends to the breaking point at this moment. Each must fit an arrow to his bow and enter the list anew. And what he's talking about is you become the rebel at that point. You become the nihilistic rebel, and we're talking about the nihilistic rebel. There's lots of different kinds of rebels, and at the end of the book, he gives a quote that most people probably know, and it contradicts what he was saying. The bow bends and the wood complains. At this moment of supreme tension, there's a leap into the fight, an unswerving arrow. That shaft is inflexible and free. It's freedom. It's get into the fight. Unless you're into the fight, you're no place at all. And that's the way he ends the book. The bow bends and the wood complains. The wood complains is probably the structure of the world will complain about you being a rebel, and that's what we get in Mgtow. And but there is a deeper truth within there. Jump into the fight, get into the fight. It's an unswerving arrow, and the shaft is inflexible, but it is also free. A lot of times in Mgtow, we get these paradoxical freedoms. I call them. I don't know what else to call them because not a lot of people do videos on paradoxes and biases and freedoms and stuff like that. The only thing we know in Mgtow that the only thing that could combat the will or the urge to be a husband, a laborer, a slave to the gynocentric is freedom. Freedom is the one thing that men have that combats that urge, that biological urge, and sometimes very unreasonable urge. And the bow bends at that point, and you can bend it to the point of breaking, or you can become a Mgtow and just resist the urge and step into the fight. And what fight we're talking about is the gender dynamics wars that goes on, and that's what we talk about when we talk about these things: gender dynamic wars. Hello, Wookie. Hello, Hank. Hello, everybody that's going to show up at this point. And there's some weird blend of paradoxical freedom in this world. Jordan Peterson often mentions suffering now so you can be free later. There's some idea. Was it David Benatar goes over this idea of the paradox of good and evil, good and bad. If suffer now and you'll receive some goodness later, and that's not a promised goodness. That's not something that's not a promised thing. Your merits, you'll get by on your merits in life and how good you are at something, but it doesn't imply that there's some. It's another paradox. It's what I call the paradoxical freedom. It's an asymmetrical paradox of freedom. David Benatar would call them. We get these paradoxical, asymmetrical paradoxes in freedom a lot. I look at it in fatherhood. You have to fight for your fatherhood. I heard today, you have to fight for that thing. The MRAs want you to get out there and woo, do a good fight. You're fighting for something that's going to enslave you. You're fighting for something that's not real. Fatherhood is not real. The Christians often do these we've seen it in Nazis when they said work will set you free. They were saying suffering is good. The Christians often, suffer for thy Lord Jesus, and there'll be this place and heaven for you. Suffering there. We always hear that capitalism makes these promises to you that you're going to enjoy the most free life ever if you just work hard, and then you can become a millionaire, and nobody ever becomes a millionaire. And this is, I guess you can look in back of me, I put that up kind of purposely, the effects of the robber barons, and on that whole thing is that's fly ash and steel ash there that they've been dumping there. That whole hole, this goes about from the lake down to Lorain, Ohio. It's about 5 miles long, and it looks like that. It looks like a moonscape. Everything's dead. That's where they dumped the fly ash from the steel mill. That's been going for it's a bigger part of our community. It wraps all the way around to one end of our community, and that's it. And that's it. That's what they left us, the promises of capitalism during the days of the robber barons, and they gave jobs, and they left the community vacant with no trees, and everything's dead. There's this paradox. They promised everyone this, you're all going to be doing great. You're going to have all these freedoms in life. You're going to be rich. You're going to be this. You're going to be that. And that starts off with, if you go to school, you'll be able to graduate from school, and there's going to be something better, something metaphorically better after that. And then, no, wait, just go to college, and there's something metaphorically better. And then get married, and there's something metaphorically better. And then you're dying at the end of it and never really achieving whatever it was that they promised you in the beginning that was metaphorically better. We see these paradoxes in life, the paradoxical freedoms that we're supposed to have enjoyed, but you just got to suffer a little bit for it. I think the ask not what you can do for your country. JFK's famous speech. You can suffer for your country. Go out and ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Yeah, paradoxical suffering, paradoxical freedom. You can always get your freedom at the edge of a sword, or the tip of a bullet, or like I like to pull it. The arrow. You shoot the arrow, and the arrow becomes free, and it's hit your mark. Stuff like that. We're full of these metaphorical terms that really don't mean nothing. And we see it with Jordan Peterson, man, just suffer now. And you can see it with married people in a relationship, just all that suffering. You're going to suffer for the kids. You're going to suffer for your wife. All that suffering will just end with some horrible death at the end. And you screaming out to the universe, what about me? And most of us, that's what it ends at. And I'm going to start reading a book on that. And we don't really know how to. I was looking around, and there's no real term for it. It's a paradoxical term, like I put it. There's a paradoxical freedom in there. If you will receive. Nothing like that's promised. That's what I would call an empty promise or lip service, from somebody that wants something from you. Generally, all these people, they want something from you. They want you to do something. I'm trying to read the comments as they come up, but but that's something else. I should never try to read the comments. I don't moderate the comments because, well, it it detracts from what I'm doing. So that was my thought after getting done reading reading Camus, The Rebel, and I think everybody should really study it and look at it and the different types of how to be a rebel and what it is to be a rebel. And it brings us into postmodernism, which we should all know and everything. But there's this other things that there's bigger things. David Benatar writes The Second Sexism too, and it has to do with the sexism against men and boys too. So you might like to read that and go over that. That's probably going to be the next book, because it gives us these opinions of paradoxical freedoms in there, and what paradoxical freedoms are. And I think it has a lot to do with what I'm talking about. If you sacrifice for your community, your woman, your life, we see this all the time in things, war. If you just sacrifice for your country, well, you're going to be dead, and that's not a very good place to be. There's a lot of things that happen. I was also looking around. There's a strange variety of really I don't know what idioms or fallacies that's associated with women. And we know the top one, that one is she's the goddess. You put her on the pedestal and everything, but after that, it's hard to work that out into life. It's hard to work those ideologies. We can see them generally by observation around us and everything, but the one that always stands out to me is women, the magic healers. By touch, they can magic heal. I see this a lot with married guys. I'm just going to go, I cut myself. My wife will take care of that. She can mix up a brew of, there's this gentle blend of, what would you call it? Simp abilities. The unicorn magic. She has unicorn magic or something. She's going to heal you. This goddess associated with magical healing, the Mother Mary. She's the Mother Mary, or she's the Greek goddess. And even some guys with the witch's tail, she has strong powers to charm and heal. This is obviously women's intuition is a thing that goes down into that too. We've talked about women's intuition, and intuition is always an opinion. The most pronounced thing I can generally tell you about intuition, women's intuition, they don't have these magical powers of healing and intuition. Misogyny is intuition. It's like she looks at something, she just knows he's a misogynist, which is just an opinion. And this opinion is an opinion of a gender dystopia or something like that. That is pretty much, it goes and it turns on itself, and it's calling a man misogynist would generally mean that you're a misandric. You hate men. It's your opinion. It's just intuitional, and that's what I generally think about the word misogyny and everything. It turns on itself, and it always just kind of tells on you when you call a man. We know this the women's intuition in nurses' intuition, this care ethics. We see this care ethics, and sometimes with our brothers over at blah, 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 Ibmore, we see this African moralities are better than white moralities, and African care ethics, they can whip you up a brew of the mojo, and then, the girl will cure you. Which is just, we see this all the time in life. There's an assumption in it, and there's a point to this whole thing, and I'll get to later. There's dangers in assuming these things, these care relations, and I think it comes from idealized maternalism, idealized maternalism that we have for women. It even goes as far as women's leadership of the world would be better because they're maternalistic. And that really, one thing has nothing to do with another. We kind of it says that there's a moral social improvement by a woman being a leader because she has some magic healing powers and she's maternalistic, and it's associated with mothering, the reasoning and activities associated with mothering and males' heads, and that could be the male mother need or the male mother figure. We see that come out, and the magic female. She just cures you by touching you. There's certain tendernesses and stuff that are construed with motherhood and the mother-child dyad sort of thing, but it's all based on fallacy, and it's ridiculous. Feminist care ethics come after that. That there's some magic thing that in feminist care ethics that there's an empirical correlation between automatic endorsements of these views in ecofeminism and motherhood. And you should always beware of those automatic endorsements of ecofeminism. That's what we call gynocentrism. The female is intuitional, and this is where I started out. The female has this intuition. Kuhn did this argument, and with the feminism, Godfrey Smith did this argument, and he says female intuition is the counter to the argument that male rationality, somehow males are more rational than females. And then they go, well, yeah, that's a real thing. Male rationality. You'll see a lot of feminists arguing this, male rationality, and it's the same metaphorical la la land that somehow we have this overt rationality. Is the same thing as female intuition. We know intuition is just simply it's an opinion. Rationality could be construed as someone's opinion. Oh, he's a very rational male. Why is he a rational male? Because he looks the part, because he looks like a philosopher, or maybe he looks like he wears his clothes look that way. Well, that's a false assumption too, and both of them are really false assumptions. But both sides in this gender argument, both sides misconstrue things, and they have these correlations and endorsements of what they believe is true. And female care ethics is one of those things that always seems to bother me. There's these certain magical healing powers, that women have. Now that goes it goes to back on a lot of their. It goes on a lot of their ideas with culture, cultivating these cultures and stuff of the African moralities. Somehow Africans have more morals than white people, and because of the care ethics involved with it, and that's generally not true. Or sometimes we can't see racism when we talk about. We could see racism, and I was thinking there's two sides to that. Sometimes there's an applied racism, and sometimes there's what we call pulling the punch on racism too. My father used to explain this one to me all the time, and he says, don't ever get into that argument where it's implied that if someone's pulling the punch on you, and then you're gonna come off looking all bad on that. So there's the African moralities and stuff like that, and somehow that culture was better. I guess we can do this with sub-Saharan cultures, or we can do this with Brazilian cultures and say, oh, those non-contacted people are living in perfect harmony together, and their cultures must be okay. And no, not really. They just don't have the problems as we do in in modern cultures and everything. But we can see this go down to this Muju Southern magic thing where women are the pharmacists, and there's some cultivating healing herbs out there. Ooh, they're going to collect them all up, and you're going to be healed. I hear that, and even goes the other way with the witch thing, where somehow they're evil, and there's some cultivating some herbs out in their garden to put the mojo on you, or put a chicken head on your door or something, and that's going to have a real live influence. I was looking at that article the other day that the put the chicken head on the door, and there's some truth in that. People come to the door and they say, "Oh, a chicken! Somebody put the mojo on me. It's bad. I got to pray this way." They grab the chicken head, they rip it off, but there's bacteria in that chicken head, and what happens is birds carry funguses. You can do this in the summer. Birds carry funguses from the south and everything. They get on the chicken population. The chicken population has a certain tendency to manufacture these same funguses, and you grab it, and all of a sudden you got a fungus, and you rub it on your face. Now you got a rash, and you're itching, and you got a fungus in your body. You have to go and get some antifungal stuff, and then you go, "Ooh, man, she played some mojo on me." So there's a little truth in everything, and I was thinking about that one earlier too. There's a little truth in every lie that's told to you. That's how they get you to buy into these truths. And there's a little truth in everything. This care ethics has a tidgeon of truth in it. But it was just, it seems ridiculous to me in a lot of these things. And as we go down these feminist, ethics thing, and the feminist empiricalism and philosophy, you'll see a lot of really unreasonable things, and that goes with what they say about men too. Like I say, oh, men are considered the reason in science that men get to come up in these scientific positions, because we're considered to be rational by some form of bias in the in the world. And it wasn't that you did that on your own merit. It's just you're considered to be rational, and that's all it was. So that's minimalization of everything. I really hate when people minimalize, because people minimalize me a lot in my trade. I'm an electrician, so sometimes in a factory, so. And sometimes I get dirty, and I'm just a blue collar guy. And then when I go to the office to try to collect my bill or something, the females in the office look down on me, and you're just a dirty electrician. And well, I went to school for that I went to school for 2 years, and then I went to school for that for a year, and then I went for 8 years of 8 years in millwrights courses, and then I went for another year and a half, 2 years for the EMT course, of electromechanical technician, and millwright. You blend the two and everything. So like I have a doctorate and and that, and she's like looking, because I got dirt on me, so I know that they look, oh, you're just a blue collar worker. Well, no, I have 12, 13, 14 years of training in this thing, and it gets rather, I know how that is, and it gets rather when you look at him, you go, wow, it's wow, I somehow I think that I'm just better and rational, because the world threw this favor on me, and I'm born into the patriarchy, and cash just comes to my door, and I have a swimming pool of cash in the back, which I just dive into, and it's filled with umbilical fluid and cash. It's like, no, that doesn't happen. And feminism, sometimes they go hyperbolic on that stuff, what we're accused of, and they don't think about the hello Pocket Aces, hello Ancient Lightning, hello Wookie, and hello everybody that comes in. Not getting all notifications. Yeah, invisible traversable mug, awesome. What is the what is the invisible submersible mug? I'm just looking to see who's all in. Um, so yeah, we get a lot of that stuff. Let's if you're gonna do Mgtow, you have to do a certain amount of logic, and you have to do a certain amount of training and fallacies and paradoxes and rhetorics. Especially, you're going to get the silliest rhetorical schemes sometimes, and then you're going to sit there for days just trying to unwind what people say to you. Uh, you know something's wrong with it. You know something when they start blithering out these things. Like suffering is good, and somehow I want to be a father. Why would you want to be called a father? That's a it's a thing that always bothered me. That means you can be in that role of being the slave to her. You get the role of being a slave, and then with that, she takes on the role of being a whore for you, so you can abuse that at night, make her into a penis pocket, and she can be fat and happy in her kitchen. Do you want that? I mean, do you want that? I don't want that, and I don't want to have the role of slave either. Father is a made-up word, like I say a million times. It's a social construct. The two sister cells, when they separate from the main cell, uh, all that really happened there is she took a photographic copy of your DNA. Now 89% of that DNA, which is just a mathematical equation. It's not a real thing. It's just an equation, or it's just numbers in this DNA strands. But everything from her is still her. She's growing that. She's making that. Two cells are her. There's nothing about you in that. She just hijacked your code and try to, like, okay, the judge says your code was in there. Well, explain what code is. That's a metaphysical idea like math. She took a copy of your code. That code is your it's almost like they're saying that code is your what do they call that, patent. You have an intellectual patent on your code. And then they say, since you used your intellectual patent on your code, you're responsible. You're the pator. You're the responsible party. And then I like to take it from the pater, which is father in German, and Latin is like you're the pater, which means payer terminal. It's like that somehow this idea that she wasn't responsible for her body, that you did something to make her pregnant. No, she invited you in. She filled you with bacteria, which started up those chemicals. She put something in you first, and then it's like being drunk. Are you responsible for being if you have sex with a woman? And I believe this, Hunter, when she is drunk, she's not. She had no way to tell whether, in the law is the law. You can be charged with rape on that. But think about what she did you with those bacterias and everything, and she started those chemicals up in your head. You were drunk on love, and all of a sudden you think you're a father, and then the whole world holds you responsible. When in the same situation, they would say she was drunk, you're a rapist. She raped you, pretty much. That's why it's kind of when I hear Jessica Valente and the feminists say all POV is rape, and I'm thinking, no, you invited it, and you're pretty much raped of men before before that happened. Think about what you did to them, with the part you played in it. But agency is not something that they take. There's no such thing as agency. Hello, Mgtow thread. Hello, RP. Hello, Pocket Ace. Hello, Angel. Yeah, agency. UTC takes your code, then she takes everything from you. Yeah. They take your code, and it's just that idea of DNA. Your DNA inside. It's nothing. It's still her material. Her. That's still her body, her material. She's doing that. You have nothing to do with that. It's just It's just an idea of code. It's a mathematical equation that goes like this, and somehow now hers is entangled with yours, and it's imprinting is what it is. I mean, that's all there is. You're not really a father. It doesn't make you responsible. She's still responsible for what her body does, and the law says that she's responsible for her body, because there's yes means yes and no means no. She said yes. She can abort the child. You can't abort it. You can't have a financial abortion. So somehow you're excluded from equality in that sense. She has Lazarus laws where she can drop the baby off, and she can get, if she decides to keep the baby, she gets total benefits, and she gets a slave. Who is that slave? That slave's you. She can divorce you, and there's polyandry laws, polygamy laws and polyandry, which she goes to the next partner, but you're still stuck with this monogamy deal where you still have to pay for her and the children. That's monogamy, legal monogamy. And she goes to be, so it's polyandry for girls and monogamy for men, all based on some barbaric principles that never got settled in the Civil War of religionism. The Muslims, not the Muslims, the Mormons were fighting with the Christians. Fatherhood is totally stupid, man. It just makes you a payer terminal. And some guys are going to sit out there and tell you, you have to fight for that right to be that. And it's not real. That's paradoxical freedom. You're giving up all your freedoms. Paradoxically, you're gaining something. What are you gaining? You're gaining nothing. You might even lose your life at some point trying so hard on that thing. It leaves us in this idea of this cognitive split duality in men, where we want to be these fathers and we want to be these mentors, but we just can't in today's idea of postmodernism, because, like I said, basically the courts have said that sort of traditionalism is out, and polygamy is now the new real, because she can jump from partner to partner, have 4 baby daddies all paying for her, and she gets 4 slaves. Now, polygamy, slavery. Now we look at that. Wow, is that where our country has gone, into polygamy, slavery? Really? Usually there's a civil war or some rebellion in this. Now I divert back to the original thing I went to, freedom of paradoxical freedom, and the questions that what you're really doing is, you're in Mgtow here is you're free of what is now replaced with free for what. What are you free for? Well, at this time in culture where the bow bends and the wood complains, and at this moment of supreme tension, do we jump into fight? Do we send our arrows off with unswerving accuracy? These shafts are they're inflexible, but they are free. And that was the idea of the whole talk today. What do we do in Mgtow? How do we jump in this fight? Because I explain, I posit that we need to get tougher, and we need to jump in this fight, because our freedoms are still at risk as Mgtows. Our freedoms as men are at risk, and there is the second sexism, as Benatar would say, David Benatar. There is the second sexism, and that's an idea that freedom is paradoxical, and there's this thing between good and bad. There's this false equivocation between what is good for a man and suffering is good for him, because this paradox that suffering is good because it'll lead you to the promised land, which is never promised. And that's a crazy idea. That's what I would call delusional, if you believe those things, and if you believe in fatherhood, and if you believe in what they tell you. Now, it's a good social construct that keeps society in perfect harmony, where men just work hard and sacrifice their bodies and their souls and sometimes their minds and their lives even. They take the final measure, and in war, which I've seen men take the final measure, and it wasn't as romantic as you all thought. There was nothing romanticized about that, and but you when you think about these things in your head, and you are this Roman god with your sword and your shield and your phalanx and that's the ideas they give us in these things. But you can give your life for freedom and democracy, and paradoxical democracy comes out of this too. And there's the paradoxes of democracy come in, but I don't want to really go into the paradoxes of democracy. I think I laid a lot on you guys today already. And hello there, Arms of Thor, Cryptic Viking, and Pocket Aces again. Joey's doing the mediating for this today, and we have another election year coming up, and still I do not see no actual Mgtow candidates out there. And it's sad. And Mgtow, as long as we've been now 12 years and trying to explain these things to, our philosophy makes total sense. We break it down in scientific and philosophical ways, and we break it down into sociology, and those are three sciences, and we do our jobs and we try to get this right, but still there's no bend in the back of the traditionalites, and they're still taunting their bows up and aiming them at you, and they want a slave, and that's what they want. And you're going to participate in their the other third one, I can't remember, the third paradoxical freedom is work or jobs. You know what your jobs are? Most of your jobs are slave duties. That's a paradoxical freedom. Or jobs, and most of these jobs you go out because nobody wants to share the resources of the country equally, so you got your gerbs, and you got to rely on these chosen ones to give you a decent amount of pay so you can perform your slave duties to the world. That's a paradoxical freedom. That's the same thing as marriage, and it's the same thing as fatherhood, and suffering is good under Jesus. You suffer for Jesus and you're going to go to heaven. It's like, no, that's all garbage. It's all bullshit. And you shouldn't think that way. The less work you do, the happier you're going to be. Go out and ride your bike. If you can get a couple weeks off, do that. That's what Mgtow is about. You work 2 years so you can take a year off. That's the way a Mgtow should think about life. You're not going to suffer that way for another person or these exalted others in your life, that are going to force you into early death and probably not much of a retirement. We talk about those things all the time, and Mgtow, they're going to drain you, and the whole thing is going to drain you, and it's going to be based on a lot of paradoxical freedoms. They'll get you to buy into a lot of those things, suffering at school and suffering through this and suffering through that. And you're going to be a better man. Out of the fire will become a hardened, tempered man. You hear those analogies about the sword and the metal, and we're making harder metal on men, but really that doesn't really it's not really true. It's just a metaphor someone made up to try to get you to believe in there, and it attaches to nationalisms and honor and masculinity, and those stories that you're told is just makes you want to be a better slave for them. And me, I just kind of seen that a few years ago, a dozen years ago or so, and I says, I'm just not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to buy into those things. There's a lot of things that'll get you to believe in this thing, like, oh, women are magic angels, and they come down and they have healing powers and they just heal you. No, they don't. Most of them are really awful, and they yell at you, and that whole thing's gonna kill you before your time. And she might even try that. 50% of the murders and violence and domestic violence all comes from women. They do it differently than we do it. They do it through poison and by proxy violence, and they don't take up the sword and the fist. They do it other ways. So I just wanted to come on and talk about that for a little bit. Most of all, I just wanted to say hello to most of my Mgtow friends, and stop by, and that's it. Share my thoughts about the universe and how I observe the things that I see on this planet. And I know it's a different outlook and it's a different view, but I went my own way. I'm allowed to go my own way within Mgtow. I'm allowed to go my own way, and that's what I would suggest for you. Go your own way, man. Go your own way. Is that right? Yeah, that's right. And all your sins from the past are forgiven. And thanks for coming around. And each one of you is what's going to make Mgtow strong. If we come into the new paradox that's brewing in this world. And I know that's not paradox, a paradigm that's brewing in this world. And there's going to be a change sooner or later here, and I hope that Mgtow is right on the spearhead of that change. And but they want to crush it out. They want to go back to traditional values that make no sense at all and don't work in society and just make men unhappy. But you can suffer. You can suffer all you want. Trust me, out there in that barren landscape, you can suffer all you want. And they'll be glad to take you. You can chuck boxes or move steel all day long. They'll be glad to have you. Mgtow's choosing a different way. We're just not taking that traditional garbage anymore. There's some magic rich guy out there that's going to make my life better. No, they're not. And that's it. So thanks for coming around, Mgtows, and thanks for listening in. And I know I don't do many videos anymore, but that's okay. It's my choice. I'm a Mgtow. I went my own way. And but most of all, thanks for being Mgtow. Mgtows.